Hello class and welcome to RES 450 Real Estate Appraisal at Ashford University. Today we'll be covering Chapter 4 from the textbook. Get your notepad and pen to take notes and help you study. You will also need the textbook required for this course. Are you ready? Let's get started. Our textbook is Basic Real Estate Appraisal Principles and Procedures, 9th edition by Richard Betts and James Glickman. Some versions of the book may also contain a CD with ClickForm's Comp Cruncher software. I suggest you have your highlighters handy to mark the important terms and concepts as we cover them today. I will be your instructor for this course. My name is Professor Regina Brown, and I'm an Ashford alum. You can find out more about me on the course page. Just click on the instructor profile link. Scroll down to the bottom of my profile to watch my video, How to Earn an A in Every Class, and discover some great study tips. In Chapter 4, we learn about the importance of neighborhood, community, and market in the value of real property. Factors that affect value are economic factors, physical features, and legal boundaries. We will also discuss how to perform a neighborhood analysis. The student learning outcomes cover the topics we will learn today. Describe the neighborhood concept and how neighborhood boundaries are defined. Explain how you can use information from a neighborhood study in the appraisal process. Explain how economics influences community origins and growth. Name 4 different physical patterns of community land use. Define a perfect market and explain why real estate markets are not perfect. Discuss the real estate market actions that you should study and why. Let's keep going. Neighborhood analysis. Since real estate value is based on location, obviously the neighborhood and local community plays an important role in the valuation process. What defines a neighborhood? What about neighborhood boundaries? The neighborhood is defined by clusters of properties of relatively similar land use and value, complementary land uses, congruous grouping of inhabitants, buildings, and/or business enterprises, termed district for non-residential grouping, and shared identity can be economic, physical, and/or social in nature, for example, linkage. Neighborhood boundaries can be defined by economic factors, such as luxury homes versus high-density zones with apartments, or a change from commercial to residential zoning. Physical features, for example, a railroad track, a freeway, or a river. Legal boundaries, such as city limits. An example of physical boundaries is shown in this example. This neighborhood boundary follows the river along the north, then the freeway along the south. Along the east and west, it's bordered by major streets, as shown. Neighborhood boundaries are complex. There are many factors that can shape those boundaries. Let's review them now. Location. Is it urban, suburban, or rural? Development and growth rate are important. Property value trends must be analyzed. Demand and supply are the basics of economics. Exposure and marketing times are taken into consideration. Predominant occupancies, is it owner-occupied or mostly renters? Prices and ages of the properties. Present land uses, is it highest and best use? Potential land use changes, is the area increasing or decreasing in value? On an appraisal, the appraiser needs to describe the neighborhood and discuss how it affects the property's value. Describe the boundaries. Define and explain if the market data comes from outside of the neighborhood boundary. Neighborhood description. Describe the immediate area in concise terms relevant to the property being appraised. Market conditions. Discuss issues that are particularly important to the analysis of trends in the subject market. The 4 major factors affecting neighborhood quality can be remembered by the acronym PEGS. P is for physical or locational factors. E stands for economic factors. G means government or political. This textbook uses only the word political, but others use the term government. They both mean the same thing. S is for social factors. Neighborhood boundaries are best judged in terms of the needs and standards of its occupants. Neighborhoods and change. Appraisers need to be aware of zoning and trends in each city and neighborhood. For example, is the community deteriorating or improving? That's why it's so important for lenders to hire appraisers who are intimately familiar with each zip code they serve. The neighborhood cycle has 4 phases. Number 1, the development phase, when the neighborhood is starting. Number 2, the stable phase, when the neighborhood stays the same. Number 3, decline phase, when the neighborhood value is going down. And number 4, the renaissance or redevelopment phase, when the older neighborhood is being rejuvenated. The appraiser must be aware of signs or evidence of neighborhood change. Those include decline in construction, degree of building maintenance, and renovation and remodeling activity. Zoning changes and land use changes are key signals that the appraiser needs to be aware of. Barometers of change signal when a neighborhood is changing. Neighborhoods are studied to understand how and why a property's value may change. A property's value is strongly influenced by the neighborhood immediately around it. We know that neighborhoods are always changing, either for the better or, more frequently, for the worse. Changes both within and around the fringes of a neighborhood should be considered carefully by the appraiser. Figure 4.4 illustrates the importance of looking beyond the immediate area around the subject property. In this figure, we see the subject property in the bottom left corner. While there are no different property types in the immediate area, you can see there is an industrial area a few blocks away. Also, there's a concentration of houses for sale around the industrial area, which could be a sign the area is changing. The appraiser needs to pay close attention to this trend. How is this neighborhood information used in the appraisal? It defines the geographic area for the market data search. The data can assist in defining the highest and best use of the property. Also, the neighborhood is a primary source of comparable sales and the support for adjustment. Researching the neighborhood helps an appraiser discover the property characteristics that are important to buyers and sellers in that location. Understanding communities and how they grow. In this section, the history of neighborhoods is explored with a focus on growth patterns and their effect on value. This section introduces the concept of the highest and best use of a property, which of course is unique to each property. Community origins and growth. When cities were first founded centuries ago, the town site selection factors were based on availability of food, water, and natural defense against enemies, topography such as mountains and flatlands, availability of raw resources, and transportation systems such as railroads in use at the time of origin. The types of towns originally founded are central towns, as shown in figure 4.5, transportation service towns, as illustrated in figure 4.6, and there are also special function towns such as Washington, D.C. The purposes of towns and cities changes over the years as society progresses. Economic growth affects the value of neighborhoods, cities, and entire regions. As an example, Boeing aircraft are built in Everett, 25 miles north of Seattle, Washington. This is an example of local production because some aircraft are sold to local airlines. Boeing also sells aircraft all over the world, which brings funds to the region, state, and nation through export production. Boeing's export production forms the economic base for the Seattle region. The factors in land use patterns include topography, as shown here in the green mountains with trees. The town's origin also is important because of the growth patterns that develop based on that. Major existing uses are not factors that will be changed anytime soon. Transportation systems define and determine land uses as well. Let's learn about the typical patterns of city development. Most cities were established near natural resources such as water access and railway proximity. Cities begin sprawling outward based on major transportation routes. As technology and equipment has developed, the need for people to live close to natural resources has lessened, as has the function of cities. Topography, of course, is also less important now than it was a century ago. One pattern of city growth is the concentric rings, as shown in Figure 4.8. Segmented rings, as shown in Figure 4.9, is another city development pattern. In this illustration, we see the commercial area in the center with the residential areas growing out from there. Near the top right is the area perceived as good views and the luxury homes. At the bottom left is the swamp with less desirable, lower-cost homes bordering it. On the left, you can see the area between the two, the transition, then older homes, and sprawling out from there, newer homes. The modern star-shaped city in Figure 4.10 illustrates how major market trading areas started around railroads, freeways, and main roads. Then the suburban areas developed outside of those commercial and retail areas. This star shape is probably the most typical pattern for a modern city or town. When the appraiser collects all of this community information, it is used to analyze community forces and show how trends affect the neighborhood. Some trends can also affect all real estate markets in that community. Studying area origins and patterns of growth helps the appraiser understand factors affecting the subject property and its surrounding neighborhood. Real estate markets. What is a market? It's any place where buyers and sellers meet to exchange goods or services. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a physical location since the internet is now one of the largest commercial sales markets in the world. Think of Amazon, for example. The trend in real estate markets is also a critical factor to consider. Real estate markets are imperfect, and therefore the market behavior must be studied carefully. The effective appraiser analyzes the market signals and interprets how it alters the property value. This is where expertise in the economics of market supply-demand balance are evident. Is real estate a perfect market as defined by economists? In a perfect market, there are numerous buyers and sellers. All parties are knowledgeable. All parties are free to trade or not trade. All products are similar and interchangeable. All products may be transported to better markets. Items are small, inexpensive, and frequently purchased, and the government plays a minor role in pricing. Does this sound like a real estate market? No, this is the market for trivial consumer goods such as a toothbrush, for example. Now let's look at imperfect markets. They're characterized by few sellers, lack of knowledge, not everyone can trade, products are different, can't move the product, large, expensive, rarely purchased, and the government has many rules to follow. Now this sounds more like the definition of a real estate market, doesn't it? Real estate markets are imperfect markets. Market analysis and interpretation. Appraisers study market activity for 3 reasons: to help decide what type of data to use, to estimate a reasonable marketing time, and to report on current market conditions and trends affecting value perceptions. Market behavior is divided into 3 parts: price levels, price movement or trends, and level of activity or sales volume. Each part must be carefully studied by the appraiser. The appraiser needs to recognize unusual patterns of activity in the real estate market. In an increasing market with upward pressure, potential buyers or lookers will increase. Combined with decreased number of listings, this could signal an upward price movement. A stable or balanced market is evidenced by smoothly moving or gradual price changes. Lastly, declining markets, also known as transitional or troubled markets, are evident with their erratic price movement, which are typically downward in direction overall. This concludes our chapter topics. Now, let's review the summary of the key points learned today. Chapter Summary. Today we learned about the concept of the neighborhood and its importance to appraisers. We found out the ways a neighborhood can be defined are varied. The 4 stages of a neighborhood cycle was explained: development, stable, decline, and renaissance phases. A neighborhood's quality can depend on land uses and maintenance levels. The appraiser needs to be knowledgeable about the local neighborhoods and aware of various signs of changing neighborhoods. The study of neighborhoods and markets helps the appraiser understand the forces affecting value. The importance of knowing community origins and growth patterns helps appraisers to understand and determine the value of real estate for the purposes of an appraisal. Compared to a perfect market, real estate is an imperfect market. Interpretations of market activity was the last important topic we covered. The appraiser needs to recognize unusual patterns of activity and determine if the market is moving upward, staying stable, or declining. Please learn the important terms and concepts shown in your textbook at the end of the chapter. Use your highlighter to mark the key terms, which are in bold text throughout the textbook. This chapter has many new key terms to learn and understand. Take a few minutes to study each of them before moving on. Now that we have covered this chapter, do you have any questions about the course material? If so, please be sure to contact me via email. Remember, my contact information is in the instructor profile inside the course. Thank you for watching this instructional video. We here at Ashford University hope you learned and expanded your knowledge base of real estate appraisals. This concludes the end of Chapter 4 of RES 450 Real Estate Appraisal at Ashford University. Please continue to watch the next instructional video.